Uchatsaneb. Welcome to the Maā podcast show, powered by the Maā Sa Society. In this podcast, we'll discuss basic principles of the Maā Sa philosophy, consciousness, principles of enlightenment, and the restoration of your spiritual authority in your everyday life. Today, we want to discuss discord and conflict, the destruction of prosperity in the Black community. You know, we must understand that prosperity and abundance doesn't come out of chaos. It comes as a result of agreement, consensus, harmony, and order. As a matter of fact, when you have a people that are aligned in every aspect of life, that are aligned in principles of health, principles of, child rearing and cultural behavior, principles of economics and things of that nature, when you have a general consensus and agreement of those things, prosperity is something that automatically comes from that. But see, we exist in a world right now where there's not a general consensus about anything within the Black community. As a matter of fact, the Black community is in a deep state of discord. And our version of overcoming that, seeking unity, as a matter of fact, you've heard many people say, I wish Black people would unite. I wish the Black community would unite. But it's impossible for us to unite when we're trying to force each other to accept opinions, political views, and things of that nature without agreement and harmony. So you're never going to get people to unify when we see things at different levels, when we have a general disagreement about all aspects of society. Right now, the Black community is the only community that finds themselves in that space. The Chinese community has general consensus about all aspects of life. The Hispanic community typically has a general consensus about, right? The Jewish community has a general consensus about all aspects of life. And those societies are producing abundance. But in the Black community, we are filled with discord and conflict, which is bringing about very low productivity, profitability, and of course, all the negative situations that come as a result. Now, historically, and I want you to really listen to what I'm about to say, but historically, during the slavery days, during the Jim Crow, days, and so on and so on, you'll find that Black communities during those eras were actually more productive and more profitable. Now, hold on, hear me out. Yes, they were enduring the atrocities of slavery. Yes, they were enduring the atrocities of Jim Crow and all those things. But if you look at the communities that were built as a result of that, you'll find that they were experiencing higher productivity and prosperity, even though that productivity and prosperity was somewhat limited by the racist system from which they existed within. However, you look at those civilizations, they had agreement, they had accord at every level. As a matter of fact, the situations of racism, the situations of slavery, the atrocity they experienced created a common understanding and a common focus that allowed them to be very prosperous. So for instance, during the Jim Crow era, you see these beautiful Black communities being built upon agreement, like Tulsa, and the Bronzeville community here in Chicago and many other communities in the society were built because Black people had a common understanding and agreement about various levels of community. And when you have that agreement, you're able to produce prosperity and abundance. Now, in our current community, we don't have that level of agreement, and therefore we're not experiencing that level of prosperity. And so it's my contention that those societies were doing so well during that time, because if you think about it, all right, if you look at Black Wall Street, if you look at, some of the other communities that were built in the South, they had some of those communities as well. They were doing so well. They were becoming so self-sufficient that is my view that that's one of the reasons why racism had to be ramped up and the violence had to be ramped up, because these communities were doing so well. So now you got poor whites coming into the Black community, starting chaos, or trying to attempt to create chaos and create violence and fear and so on and so on and so on, because these communities had done so well together. These communities were self-sufficient. They had their own Black businesses. Everything within this community was done by their people. And they were able to experience this concept of prosperity and abundance that we are not seeing today. Now, in our current day, we are in a deep state of discord and conflict. We don't agree upon health and wellness. We don't agree upon male-female relationships. We don't agree upon how to rear kids anymore. We don't agree upon economical principles. We don't agree upon anything. And that is what's causing us to be, our communities to be filled with poverty and suffering. Okay, because we cannot come together in agreement to produce prosperity and abundance. Our idea of producing prosperity is to force someone else to accept our view. And therefore, if we could get everybody to see it our way, that's how we're going to create harmony. But that's exactly the opposite of how you create harmony. You create harmony through coming to an agreement and facilitating that agreement through building your society. Even though we have many people in our society today that are very wealthy. We have thousands of millionaires now, black millionaires, right? We even have black billionaires now. But our communities are still very riddled with poverty, low productivity, and all these different things. Why? It's not because, I'm not going to go as far as to say that these millionaires, these billionaires don't want to provide, don't want to come in and assist. The problem is we are so disjointed, we are so in a state of conflict that throwing money into our communities right now would not do anything, because we don't have the level of agreement, the level of consensus to take that money and make it productive. So I'm not going to sit here and say that these billionaires out here, these entertainers that have all this money don't want to help the community. I think it's because where would you put the money? We don't agree upon anything, so the money would just fizzle into nothingness and it'd be a waste of money. But we are experiencing deep discord in our community right now, especially when you look at the political stances that we're taking now, that we are experiencing now. Black people are deeply divided politically right now, and that is causing this rift. It is creating such a toxic environment that you have families, black families now, saying that they're not going to talk to other family members because they view things differently. We have come to accept this quote unquote gang-banging mindset in politics, where it's not about voting self-interest, it's about voting against the person that I dislike. If you vote with that person that I dislike, I'm going to label you the enemy and therefore cut myself off from you. So now you can't come over to family dinners. Now your brother can't come over. Your sister can't come over. Now I hear on social media where people are actually talking about not talking to their parents because the parents have differing, political views and so on and so on. If we were to bring an ancestor from the slavery days or even from the Jim Crow days and brought them here and had them observe the state of Black America, when Black Americans are doing way better than, from an individual standpoint, than they were. If we were to bring an ancestor here today and just sit them down amongst us and they see the wealth that we have, they see the things that we have that they didn't have, and then they would look at the discord that we're manifesting towards each other now, they would feel, in my opinion, sick to their stomach to see some of the carnage that has taken place within our communities, the discord and conflict. And we can't even talk about our brothers and sisters, right, manifesting the low vibration in the streets that are actually shooting and killing each other. We can't even get to that. We're talking about college-educated, middle-class people that are fighting each other over this politics. This, what I call the gang-banging politics. I call drill politics. Kind of like the Chief Keef created drill rap. I call it drill politics, where we're not even talking about what these politicians are talking about, what they represent. We're talking about ops. You're either on our side or with the ops, and it doesn't matter about the political views or whatever. If you're with the ops, you're the enemy. I don't care if you're my brother. I don't care if you're my mother. I don't care if you're my sister. If you vote with the ops, you're done with this family. That is one of the most ridiculous concepts I've ever heard, but that's the state of where we are right now. So even though we have all this money, even though we have all this, the things that we're doing now, people are, having jobs. We got black CEOs, and, we're doing better than our people from the slave days and the Jim Crow days. But our communities are not prosperous, and they're not productive because we're in such a state of discord and conflict. Whereas if the opposite was true during slavery, where they had a common understanding, they had a common focus, and that created abundance, prosperity, but it also allowed them to survive the atrocities of slavery, the atrocities of Jim Crow. Whereas we have everything at our feet right now, and we're so disunited that we're disassociating ourselves with blood relatives. So you cannot have prosperity and abundance without a general consensus. Now notice, I didn't say agree. I didn't say we have the same views. We have a general consensus. You can have a political view. I can have a political view. I accept that that's your political view. I don't have to force you to change your political view. You have your political view, but we always stay united under a common agenda. And we have to create that common agenda, understand the needs, so that we can present ourselves as a unified front to benefit from this political system. See, right now, because we have so much discord, because we're in such a state of conflict, because we're doing what I call drill politics, opposition politics, because we're in such a state of discord, our voice in the political arena is not heard. We don't have any power behind our voice anymore. As a matter of fact, it is my contention, my opinion, that if you look at the last 2 election cycles, you're not even the focus. That's talking about the black community, not even the focus of the political agenda of either the Democrats nor the Republicans. You're being asked to vote for the self-interest of other ethnicities at the demise of yours. So your political voice is not strong anymore. You don't have the ability to go out and ask people to, not ask, but motivate people to take care of your needs, your health and wellness needs, your children needs, your education needs, social needs. Nobody is trying to take care of you anymore. Why? Because your voice is not organized to influence that. There's no power behind your voice because we're in this deep state of discord and conflict. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on, but that's something that's, to me, is quite shocking, how we can build a platform on this political system that's never really helped us, and we build this platform to a point where we're not speaking to family members. In my opinion, for you to accept that platform, you have to be 100% guaranteed that who you're supporting has your best interest in mind. See, the goal is not black people anymore in the political system. The goal is the LGBTQ community and immigrant community. But anyway, I digress. Let's keep it moving. So the purpose of our conversation today is hopefully to give you some understanding of how we're going to bring ourselves into consensus, okay? And so we project the Maā Sa philosophy. If you understand the Maā Sa philosophy, as a matter of fact, I have a book that's coming out here shortly that you can read in your own time that will give you an understanding of the Maā Sa philosophy. But the Maā Sa philosophy has fundamental teachings. As a matter of fact, in the book, I wrote that, there are certain religious principles that have brought us to this state of chaos. And so in order for us to rise out of this chaos and come to a general consensus so that we can experience productivity and prosperity, there are certain things that we're going to have to let go of, I guess, for lack of a better word. But the Maā Sa teaches us that source you may call God, but source existed prior to the manifestation of things. So this concept source, we wouldn't necessarily label as a man nor a woman because it existed prior to the manifestation of man and woman. So this thing existed prior to the notion of any and all things, prior to even the idea of any and all things. It existed. It exists in a state of what we call awareness. And this awareness, once it came to this awareness, it brought, right, the universe and all of its diversity came into manifestation. So the universe and all of diversity came into manifestation to fulfill a specific objective of this singularity. And as you've heard me say many times before, source, once the universe manifested, source dwells within the universe. So therefore, I cannot say that I exist here and source exists somewhere else. No, I am the source manifesting through the limitations of the mind itself. Now, according to this, all diversity, right? Since source existed alone, one without another, indivisible, so therefore there's no competition. So whatever it brings into manifestation is what we call the supreme intelligence. It cannot be disrupted by any subsequent thing of manifestation. It wants to experience itself in a state of abundance and prosperity. So that becomes the objective and the reason behind the diversification of all things. So therefore, all diversity, all difference that has come into manifestation, will come into manifestation, must serve to further the fulfillment of the one objective. And so we call these concepts Maā and Maā-t. Maā is the objective, right? Because intelligence is quantified by first you have an objective. That objective we call it Maā. So when source came to awareness that it wanted to experience prosperity and abundance through its own hands, that becomes the objective, right? The singular objective we call Maā, from which all subsequent things must serve to further. All beings, all situations, all things that come into manifestation, will come into manifestation, has come into manifestation, must serve to further the fulfillment of this objective. So therefore, they exist in their own purpose to fulfill this objective. And Maā is the collaboration of difference to fulfill this objective. Now, that's a very rudimentary foundational concept between Maā and Maā-t. But, I'm going to leave it there. You have ample opportunity to go to the Maā-sa.org. That's MAA-SA.org, or download the app and join us on our Sunday meditation services where we get into greater detail, or become a part of our Reku foundational training where you get more detail about those concepts. But anyway, diversity comes together to fulfill one objective. Diversity comes into manifestation to fulfill a specific purpose in regards to collaborating with other purposes to fulfill that one objective. And so we call that interaction Maā and Maā-t. So we don't use the word universe, we say Maā-t, because everything is an expression of the one thing, and everything comes into manifestation to fulfill the objective of the one thing, including all of the galaxies, the almost infinite amount of galaxies, and all the things that are possible to be an expression of that galaxy, all serve to further, we're all collaborating to serve to further the one objective. Now, therefore, the fulfillment of the one objective is dependent upon the peaceful collaboration. So when you have a harmonious collaboration, meaning each part is doing their role in conjunction to fulfilling the objective, when you have a harmony, when you have agreement, when you have consensus collaboration, you automatically fulfill the objective. And since the reason why all the parts came into manifestation to fulfill the objective, once that objective is being fulfilled, the individual pieces now find themselves in prosperity and abundance. So the fact that we exist within the supreme intelligence we call Maā, the fact that we exist within this system, and therefore my existence, your existence, has meaning and purpose towards fulfilling the one objective, then that means that when we're all collaborating in harmony with each other, right? We all have this collective collaboration. When that collaboration is in harmony, the objective is being met. And since that objective is being met, that means that the collaboration is also prosperous. And that's what we mean by you cannot experience prosperity and abundance in states of conflict and chaos. That's impossible. Imagine for a second a car's engine and the transmission got into conflict with the engine manifold. That would completely destroy the car's ability to manifest motion. And that's exactly what we're saying when we're talking about the concept of difference and the concept of Maā. Difference exists because difference is necessary to fulfill a specific purpose, because difference is tied to the specific purpose, in collaboration to other differences and collaboration to other purposes to fulfill the one objective. Just like the parts of a car collaborate intelligently to fulfill the objective of motion. So you cannot experience prosperity or abundance in any regard in states of conflict and discord. That's impossible. And what the concept of Maā is saying is that we have to respect difference, understand difference, not from the difference like I see you, you're different or whatever, from an ego standpoint. We have to understand the objective, your purpose that you're fulfilling to fulfill the objective. That's what we have to come to understand. And we call that in the Maā Sa society comprehension and understanding. I have to comprehend the reason why you exist according to Maā, according to the purpose that you're here to do to fulfill Maā. I have to comprehend that. That allows me to accept your difference in love and understanding. And therefore, I'm able to interact with you in harmony and agreement, thus producing prosperity and abundance as a result. That's what we mean by the concept of Maā. As a matter of fact, the Maā Sa philosophy goes even further. If Source came to the awareness that is the source of prosperity and abundance, and therefore everything manifested to bring about that experience, and since I am Source manifesting through the limitations of the mind itself, then that means Maā, or the universe, came into manifestation for my benefit. So in other words, I exist within the supreme intelligence we call Maā. I exist to experience prosperity and abundance through the application of my purpose, my difference, in consensus with your purpose, your difference, to fulfill the one objective. So therefore, if I am experiencing anything other than prosperity and abundance, it is not what this system of intelligence was designed to create, was designed to bring about. Therefore, I can only say that I am responsible. I'm the reason why conflict and discord exists. Because the system was built for my benefit. The system was built to bring me into the experience of prosperity and abundance. So we have to fight beyond the conflict. We have to sit down and come to a general consensus. We cannot allow the input of our enslavers, birth the enslavers from the white supremacy through the savior complex, or the white supremacy through the management and policing complex. If we remove these concepts from us, we would come to a general understanding of Maā. That's why in certain things in the political scheme, black people are still very firm on. It's not because we're trying to be firm, it's because in our genetic memory bank, we're holding firm to something that we may not be able to communicate, but it's intuitive within us, the reality of quote unquote harmony within Maā. We're harmony driven people. So we have to drop the gangbang in politics, put our differences aside, and realize that the political system doesn't really serve us. But if we get together and serve each other, it'll give us a greater political voice and give us greater power within this system. so that we can actually bring some prosperity and abundance back into our community. So in the Maā Sa society, or in the Maā Sa philosophy, we have is basically what we call 7 Maā-t, or what we call 7 principles from which the universe of Maā is built upon. There are 7 fundamental principles of your life experience. All right. And each one has, quote unquote, an affirmation or a principle governing that experience. And so I want to read Maā 5 for you. It says, I am Ra, the intelligence, as Maā. I am accord, thus abundance. Your transfiguration is the result of your comprehension of me, and the experience of accord, prosperity, and abundance is a validation of me. So let me just briefly break those down for you. It says, I am Ra, the intelligence, as Maā. Now, don't get thrown off with Ra. There's been a lot of lies told about Ra. Ra is not the sun god. The Holy Spirit in the Bible comes from the concept of Ra. Even Shiva in the Hindu tradition comes from the concept of Ra. But anyway, it says, I am Ra, the intelligence, as Maā. We say that source comes as intelligence. So we exist in the supreme intelligence as the source, right? Functioning within the supreme intelligence. Therefore, everything is governed by intelligence. Everything exists to serve a purpose, to serve some form of a purpose towards fulfilling the one objective. Nothing can exist outside of that concept. It's impossible for something to exist outside of that concept. The second verse, it says, I am accord, thus abundance. When you bring difference into manifestation, when you create difference, you're creating it to collaborate to fulfill the objective. That's the only reason why difference exists. Difference only exists to bring it to collaboration, to fulfill an objective. So when it says, I am accord, thus abundance, accord is the goal of intelligence. If intelligence existed first and diversity came into manifestation, diversity has to fulfill an objective. Therefore, the consensus between those parts to fulfill their right, the collaboration, is what brings about the fulfillment. So when it says, I am accord, thus abundance, it's saying you only exist to fulfill a purpose and collaboration. So therefore, the intelligence is hoping for accord, because that's the only way the objective can be met. Imagine if you had discord between all the parts of your car. Your car would not be able to fulfill motion, and so on and so on. It says, the third verse, it says, your transfiguration is a result of your comprehension of me. We can only overcome division and conflict through understanding that all things serve to further the one objective of Maā. I need to come to understand and comprehend you and the things that I experience through its relationship to Maā. Since Maā is the same for all things, even though you manifest in difference, what you're serving is the same for all things. Even though my difference exists to serve to further the one objective, your difference exists to serve to further the one objective. So when we comprehend the one objective, we're able to overcome difference and find ourselves collaborating in harmony, in congruence, in consensus, even though we are different. So when it says your transfiguration is the result of your comprehension of me, once we comprehend Maā through all difference, then we're able to collaborate in harmony, in accord, so that we can produce prosperity and abundance. Why? Because the system was built to produce prosperity and abundance. So when it says your transfiguration is a result of your comprehension of me, it's saying that we have to look beyond the difference to see your relationship to the objective from which all things in the universe and Maā-t brought into manifestation. It says that your experience of accord, prosperity, and abundance is a validation of me. Your experience of accord, abundance, and prosperity is a validation of me. The system was built to produce prosperity and abundance. The supreme intelligence, this system of intelligence that we exist in, was built to produce prosperity and abundance. The only way you can experience conflict, discord, low productivity, poverty, and so on is because you brought yourself into conflict with each other. And it's through conflict and discord that prosperity and abundance is obstructed. So therefore, if I'm a people trying to take advantage of you, I'm going to create discord and conflict within you. And that's going to put you in a position where you will be obstructed from competing. And therefore, you'll turn and fight each other versus organizing and building yourself into a unified front that demands attention from the oligarchical system from which we exist in. So I want to close on this. Let's close on the fact that we have to now create a general consensus. We have to have open conversations about health and wellness, about male-female relationships, about rearing children, about social economical values. We have to come religious and philosophical. We have to rid ourselves of the mental shackles that have been placed upon us and come to that consensus. Because we're not going to be able to compete against other traditions if we don't come to that consensus. And that's where we are right now. We have to rid ourselves of the conflict and discord. I'm going to end on this, and this is something I want you to really think about. America is moving into a space, and this may sound quite shocking to you, but America is moving into a space by which it's going to need Black people to not only organize, but to move to the position of leadership to save this country. That's where we're going. The situation that we're going to endure as Americans moving forward is going to need our genius. What is our genius? Our genius is the ability to bring consensus, the ability to organize, the ability to harmonize, which is exactly how we survived slavery in the Jim Crow era. White people are also going to have to get rid of white supremacy, but it's going to be much harder for them to get rid of white supremacy than it is for you to grow beyond Black inferiority. And that's why you're going to have to position yourself to save America. But we're not going to be able to save America if we're fighting each other. Thank you for listening to the Ra'ama Hetep Men podcast show, powered by the Maā Sa Society. If you want to hear greater detail about the Maā Sa philosophical principles, feel free to go to our website, themaasa.org. That's MAA-SA.org. Also, feel free to download our app under the same title, Maā Sa. Again, we appreciate you spending time with us. And again, let's continue to use this time to come to a consensus, to overlook our differences so that we can truly empower our community for greatness. And we hope that that greatness comes through the Maā Sa philosophy. Ucha Seneb Sa Ma'a.